This is the best carrot cake I have ever had in my life.
It's the kind of cake that would make your grandma proud. Certainly my grandma proud.
Hi, I'm Micah, and I'm gonna show you how to make our best ever carrot cake. It's an incredible recipe, unlike a lot of other carrot cakes you'll find, because we incorporate a couple special ingredients along the way that make it something super decadent and super moist. So, to get started, I'm gonna take 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm gonna whisk into this all-purpose flour 2 teaspoons of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. And you're just whisking to combine these ingredients, and then I'm gonna set these dry ingredients aside. All right, and then in your stand mixer, you're going to set it up with the whip attachment because we're just gonna be incorporating the liquid ingredients at first. And you're gonna put in your bowl 3 large eggs, 2 cups of sugar, 3/4 of a cup of vegetable oil, 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. All right, and you're just gonna mix this on low until it's well combined. All of my liquid ingredients are combined, and so now I'm just gonna add that flour mixture that I whisked together a few moments ago and beat it on low until it's combined. You're not looking to overmix it, just mix it until no more dry pockets remain. And you can scrape down the sides of the bowl if the flour clings to the side of the bowl a little bit to continue incorporating all of the flour mixture. The cinnamon makes this cake incredibly aromatic, and the buttermilk adds a really nice tang that also reacts against the baking soda, which gives each cake layer the right amount of lift. All right, so I'm gonna continue mixing. All right, my batter is now done being mixed, and you can see that it's a very liquid batter. And to this, I'm now gonna add our next 4 ingredients. The first is obviously the staple of the cake, 2 cups of grated carrots. Now, you can grate this on a box grater yourself, or to save yourself a lot of time, if you have the grating attachment on your food processor, this takes a total of 30 seconds. So I recommend using that if you have it. If you don't, you can do it by hand. 3.5 ounces of shredded sweetened coconut. You can also buy the can of coconut. It should be 3.5 ounces like the recipe calls for, and it will say flaked coconut on the can. All right, 1 cup of chopped walnuts or pecans. I had walnuts in my cupboard, so that's what I'm gonna use today. And then our first secret ingredient. This is what sets our carrot cake apart from all others. We include 1 8-ounce can of crushed pineapple. As the cake bakes, the moisture in the pineapple will be absorbed by the dry ingredients, and the sweetness of the pineapple and the tiny tidbits of pineapple will remain intact and add extra texture and give with the carrot and the coconut and the nuts, making this cake super, super flavorful, and making sure that there's a lot going on in every bite. Here I have 3 9-inch cake pans that I've lined at the bottom with a circle of parchment paper or wax paper. I've greased the entire inside, including the parchment paper, and sprinkled it with flour. So by preparing your pans this way, it won't stick. I'm going to divide the batter between these 3 cake pans. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and I'm going to bake these for 25 to 30 minutes, just until a toothpick inserted into the center of each layer comes out clean. I mentioned earlier a few secret ingredients that we use in our recipe to set it apart from all others, and this is by far one of the most important. We make a buttermilk glaze to go over the cake layers as they're cooling. The glaze seeps into the cake as it cools, and so you get this super tangy, sweet, rich, moist texture inside the cake once you assemble it. So in a Dutch oven or any large pot that you have, you're gonna combine 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1/2 cup of buttermilk, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. This is going to offset some of the acidity of the buttermilk and then also lend its own sort of mouthfeel to the glaze. 1 tablespoon of light corn syrup. And then after the corn syrup, I'm gonna add a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of unsalted butter. All right, the last ingredient is vanilla extract, but we're not gonna incorporate that until we're done boiling this mixture. All right, I have my Dutch oven on my stove over medium-high heat, and the baking soda is reacting with the buttermilk, so you'll notice that the mixture is gonna get really foamy. I'm gonna bring it to a boil and let it boil for 4 minutes. And then I'm gonna remove it from the heat and add the vanilla and stir the vanilla in to let it cool. You'll notice that as the butter melts, the color changes from white to an off yellow, and it starts to smell kind of like caramel. All right, now that it's starting to boil, I'm setting a timer for 4 minutes, and then I will remove it from the heat and add the vanilla. I've reduced the heat to low, and it's almost been 4 minutes of boiling. You'll notice that the color is a deep amber color, and it definitely smells like caramel now. All right, and that is my 4 minutes. So I'm going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. The vanilla extract will hiss and bubble because it's going into a really hot sugar mixture. That is completely normal. I carefully transferred the buttermilk glaze to this glass pitcher, or measuring cup rather. Be really careful as you do that, because this buttermilk glaze, when it comes off the stove, is incredibly hot. And if it gets on your skin, it'll stick and burn you. So just be careful, let it cool a little bit in the Dutch oven before transferring it. Okay, and then I have my 3 cake layers right here that have just been removed from the oven. They're still very hot. And while they're hot, it's important that I pour the buttermilk glaze over them. I'm going to evenly divide the buttermilk glaze between these 3 layers and use my spatula to spread it around. This glaze will seep into the crumb of the cake and make it so incredibly moist and sticky and sweet. It also, because it has that caramel quality, that almost burnt sugar quality, it adds that savory sweet component to a cake that's already pretty sweet on its own, you know? All right, I'm going to let these sit for 15 minutes like this, and then I'm going to transfer them to a wire rack. I'm gonna remove the cake layers from the cake pans, put them on the wire rack to cool completely, and then we'll frost them. 15 minutes have now passed, so I'm going to use an offset spatula to run around the perimeter of each cake and then release the cakes from the cake pans. They're gonna be really, really sticky. That's a good thing. And you can see how the buttermilk glaze has soaked completely into the cake. All right, and I will remove the ring of parchment paper and leave that cake layer to rest. And I will do the same thing with the other 2. While my layers are cooling, I'm going to make our cream cheese frosting. It's a simple cream cheese frosting, but it's reliable and it goes perfectly with our carrot cake. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take 11 ounces of softened cream cheese, put that in my mixer, put 8 tablespoons or 1 stick of softened butter into the mixer. And then this actually isn't in the recipe, but I always throw a pinch of salt in there. And I'm gonna cream these together until they are well combined. Okay, now I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl to get the cream cheese and the butter off of the sides. And I'm gonna add the contents of 1 16-ounce box of powdered sugar to this mixer. In addition to the powdered sugar, I'm gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. When you're reading the recipe online, it says beat on high for 10 seconds or until well combined. That's great, and that's what we're working toward. However, if you beat it on high immediately, powdered sugar is gonna go flying everywhere, okay? So lower your stand mixer, lock it in place. I'm gonna increase the speed to low and turn it off intermittently until the powdered sugar is done being incorporated. And then I'm going to increase the speed to 10 so that it makes it super light, fluffy, and airy. By letting it beat on high for a while, you incorporate air so that it becomes a really fluffy, velvety cream cheese frosting. Look at that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna transfer this just to a bowl that I have. I'm gonna get my offset spatula ready and set that aside. And once my cake layers are cooled, I'm going to assemble the cake. It has been about an hour and a half and my cake layers are completely cool. I've transferred one of them to the serving plate I'm gonna use to assemble the cake. And on this layer, I'm gonna spread a really smooth and thin layer of the cream cheese frosting, another layer of cake, another layer of frosting, the final layer of cake, and then I'm gonna use the rest of the frosting to cover the cake. All right, this next step is so important. I'm gonna add the third layer, but flip it over so that the bottom of the layer is actually what's sitting on top of the cake. As the cake bakes, the top can become a little uneven or have a slight dome, but the bottom is gonna be perfectly flat, and so that makes for a perfectly smooth and even top to your cake. All right, and another one of my secrets, I love carrot cakes that have quite a lot of texture on the top from like swooshes in the frosting, and better than a spatula is just a good old-fashioned spoon.
It's the kind of cake that would make your grandma proud. Certainly my grandma proud. Okay, and then I'm gonna decorate it with some toasted coconut just around the perimeter and some more chopped walnuts. These are both ingredients that are obviously inside the cake as well. So it gives whoever you're feeding this delicious cake to an idea of what might be hiding inside.
I am done decorating my cake. I also grated a little fresh carrot just so it had some of that bright orange to pop on the surface. And now, for the best part, I get to cut into it and try it. Oh my goodness. Such a tender cake. Look at that. There's so much going on. There's so much coconut and walnuts and carrot that it's a super crumbly cake. But as you can see, it still holds its shape. Y'all. That buttermilk glaze turns those cake layers into such soft, sticky, delicious, fall apart in your mouth layers. It is unreal. I will confess to you, I have never had this recipe or made it until I was preparing for this video. And I wholeheartedly stand by the statement that this is the best carrot cake I have ever had in my life. The cream cheese frosting has the tang, has the smoothness that complements the cake in a way that really nothing else but cream cheese frosting can do. If you've enjoyed this video and you feel inspired to bake along with Southern Living, then follow our YouTube channel. It's a great resource for tons of recipes that you're bound to love. Thanks so much for joining me today. Have a good one.